Today, we will examine one of the greatest mysteries of modern alchemy, a molecule caught between sterile, white-lit chemistry laboratories and the darkest, unregulated corners of internet mythology, adrenochrome. Let's state a clear truth right at the start. Adrenochrome is a real compound. The dark and fantastical stories attributed to it are not. Is this complex picture before us a biological miracle? Or is it merely the tragic story of an oxidized hormone that has been misunderstood, distorted, and built upon by massive fictional narratives? In the first seconds of the video, I want to introduce you to the heart of this story, a formula, C₉H₉NO₃. This is the chemical signature of adrenochrome. The story begins with adrenaline, that essential hormone responsible for our body's fight-or-flight response, which ensures our survival in moments of danger. Adrenaline takes the lead when our blood pressure rises, our pupils dilate, and our muscles prepare for a sudden burst of energy. However, the journey of this molecule starts in the sterile and controlled environment of a test tube and moves first to the misty psychiatry laboratories of the 1950s, then to the smoky rooms of Hunter S. Thompson, and finally to the endless immortality myths of the digital age. Today, we are laying out this chemical process, the historical deviations, and the massive chain of cultural illusions behind it, layer by layer, with all its scientific reality. What exactly is adrenochrome? If we peel back all those mysterious and frightening veils, the most honest answer remains. Adrenochrome is a natural oxidation product of adrenaline. When our body is under intense stress, sudden fear, or physical threat, the adrenal glands secrete adrenaline. Once this adrenaline enters the bloodstream, it loses electrons either with the help of certain enzymes or simply by being exposed to oxygen in the air. This chemical process fundamentally changes the structure of the molecule, turning it into an unstable, pigmented compound in shades of deep red or pink. The fact that a transparent liquid takes on this color, resembling a dark wine through oxidation, has caused a false mysticism to be attached to the substance throughout history. This structure, which emerges as a result of this natural decomposition process, is what we call adrenochrome. This substance, with the formula C₉H₉NO₃, is classified as an indole derivative in chemistry. While its structure shows similarities to neurotransmitters like serotonin and melatonin, which regulate peace and sleep in the brain, its function and fate in the body are completely different. Producing adrenochrome in a laboratory environment is not, contrary to popular belief, esoteric knowledge, or a state secret. Oxidizing adrenaline in a controlled manner using standard oxidizing agents like silver oxide or potassium ferricyanide is a routine procedure that can be performed even in a university-level chemistry lab. In other words, the legend that living sources are needed to obtain the substance completely contradicts biochemical facts, because synthetic production is both purer and much easier. The greatest collective illusion here is the thought that this substance is rare, mysterious, or inaccessible. In fact, from a biological standpoint, adrenochrome is simply an extremely unstable molecule. It is highly sensitive to light, and when left at room temperature, its molecular structure quickly breaks down, turning into a non-functional brown polymer. Due to this delicate nature, it is quite difficult to keep fresh and store in scientific research. Seen from a scientific perspective, adrenochrome is not a mysterious elixir of life. It is a chemical waste product at the final stop of a biological metabolism that has already lost its energy potential. Like the last bit of smoke before a candle goes out, it is a trace left by adrenaline after it has completed its function. The image of adrenochrome in popular culture as a mind-bending, perception-altering substance is actually based on some speculative studies conducted in the 1950s that have long been abandoned by modern medicine. This subject is the most concrete and exemplary instance of how a scientific hypothesis can be distorted to fuel an urban legend. In 1952, Canadian psychiatrists Abram Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond put forward a theory that was considered radical for its time to solve the mystery of schizophrenia, the adrenochrome hypothesis. Hoffer and Osmond suggested that the bodies of schizophrenia patients could not properly metabolize adrenaline, and as a result of this error, excessive amounts of adrenochrome accumulated in the brain. According to their claim, adrenochrome was a natural hallucinogen. The body was producing a poison within itself, and this poison was distorting the individual's perception of reality from the inside, causing delusions. The idea gained rapid attention because it framed schizophrenia as the body poisoning itself. This theory created a great wave of excitement in the medical community. To prove their claims, Hoffer and Osmond injected themselves and volunteers with high doses of adrenochrome. As a result of the experiments, they provided subjective reports such as shifts in time perception, extreme brightness in the colors of objects, and deep melancholy. They even investigated the presence of a substance they called the pink spot, excreted in the urine of some patients, arguing that this compound was concrete biological evidence of schizophrenia. To them, schizophrenia was not a disease of the mind, but a biochemical error. However, the scientific method operates through a mechanism of constant monitoring and self-correction. In the following decades, modern and much more meticulous double-blind, controlled experiments proved conclusively that adrenochrome does not cause schizophrenic symptoms. It was understood that the hallucinogenic effects of the substance were incredibly weak compared to real psychedelics, and that the reported effects consisted largely of the placebo effect, arising from the expectations of patients and doctors. Modern psychiatry today explains schizophrenia through the complex interaction of dopamine, glutamate, and genetic factors. Hoffer's theory remained among the creative but unproven side paths of medical history. Yet this failure was enough to whet the appetite of the literary world. The lion's share of the credit for adrenochrome's escape from laboratories and its infiltration into the public imagination belongs to two giants of the literary world, Aldous Huxley and Hunter S. Thompson. By using this chemical compound as a plot element, they unknowingly laid the foundations of a modern myth. Famous author Aldous Huxley, in his 1954 cult work, The Doors of Perception, refers to the then fresh studies of Hoffer and Osmond. Huxley discusses on a philosophical level that the effects of adrenochrome might carry structural similarities to mescaline. However, Huxley did not treat this as definitive data, but as a speculation about the workings of the mind. Nevertheless, the influence of the book was so great that readers began to read this philosophical inquiry like a scientific report and categorize adrenochrome as an exotic and unattainable drug. The real explosion happened in 1971 with Hunter S. Thompson's novel Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the pinnacle of the gonzo journalism movement. In the book, and later in the film adaptation, the character's pursuit of fresh adrenochrome taken from a living source and its terrifying effects, which lead to a loss of physical control, etched an indelible, haunting image into the viewer's mind. Thompson described the substance as 10 times more powerful than pure adrenaline, placing reality entirely at the service of fiction. We must make a vital distinction here. Hunter S. Thompson completely made up the story that adrenochrome was obtained in this way and that it created such extreme effects. Thompson admitted in his later biographies and interviews that he exaggerated this substance as a literary tool to add a dark mystery and an eerie atmosphere to the story. However, the staggering visual power of the cinema and Johnny Depp's performance caused these fictional details to be coded as an unshakable truth in the social memory.
They don't want you to know.
People mistook a writer's creativity for a biochemical reality, and fiction took precedence over the truth. Now, let's focus on the most far-fetched claim of the digital age. Does adrenochrome really provide immortality? Is there a biological equivalent to the claims of an elixir of youth or cellular regeneration? The short and clear answer is no. However, the biochemical reasons behind this answer are much more interesting and educational than the myth itself. For a substance to delay aging, it must either slow down the shortening of telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of our cells, or actively repair DNA damage. There is not a single scientific article or clinical study indicating that adrenochrome has a positive effect on these processes. In fact, the real biological picture is quite the opposite. Adrenochrome is a result of oxidative stress. The increase of free radicals and the acceleration of oxidation in the body are among the primary causes of aging. Therefore, expecting a recipe for youth from a waste product of this process is equivalent to expecting fresh air from exhaust fumes. Oxidation is a process of rusting for the body, and adrenochrome is an accelerated indicator of this rusting. The half-life of adrenochrome in the body is extremely short. It is measured in minutes. The body perceives this substance as a foreign compound and quickly metabolizes it through enzymes in the liver and excretes it. It does not have the ability to accumulate in tissues, seep into the cells, and change the genetic structure, or magically bypass the blood-brain barrier, the protective shield of the brain, to open the mind. If this substance were a powerful regenerator as claimed, it would cause massive oxidative damage in the cells biochemically, leading to rapid cell death, technically known as apoptosis. In other words, it would bring cellular destruction, not youth. Actual medical literature lists the systemic effects of high-dose adrenochrome as follows: severe heart rhythm disturbances, sudden spikes in blood pressure, unbearable headaches, and a heavy load on the cardiovascular system. This pressure on the heart muscle consumes the body rather than regenerating it. In short, this substance does not make you immortal. On the contrary, unregulated use can bring your heart to the point of stopping. The claim of immortality is nothing more than a modern, dangerous copy of the philosopher's stone legend that alchemists pursued centuries ago, seasoned with scientific terms. Throughout human history, there has always been a need for a legend of a secret formula, or a forbidden fruit used by the elite. In the Middle Ages, this was the fountain of youth. Today, it is adrenochrome. The reason this myth is so resilient is the psychological process we call confirmation bias. If you add 1% scientific truth to a lie, the credibility of that lie in minds increases exponentially. People prefer to believe in a simple and dark story rather than trying to understand complex biological processes, because this story offers them the illusion of explaining the evils, injustices, and unexplained phenomena in the world through a conspiracy. The story of adrenochrome is actually a summary of modern man's problematic relationship with information. A simple oxidation process that began in a laboratory tube evolved into a massive modern mythology through the influence of literature, cinema, and the uncontrolled echo chambers of the internet. Science whispers this to us. Adrenochrome is just a molecule, nothing more and nothing less. It neither carries you to the gates of other dimensions nor turns back the hands of your biological clock. Real youth or mental clarity is hidden not in mysterious rituals or dark laboratory products, but in the light of science, rational thought, and a correct understanding of nature's workings. It exists, but the supernatural roles we assign to it exist only in our imagination. In this video, we have peeled back the curtains of a legend with scientific facts. If you are curious about the behind the scenes of such scientific mysteries, and where truth diverges from fiction, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, the search for truth is the greatest adventure.